Living with my friends in this old, creaky house has been the most thrilling experience of my life so far. I'm 21, and everything feels more intense in this space we've carved out for ourselves. It's been a year since we signed the lease, but it already feels like a lifetime filled with inside jokes, late-night talks, and the lingering smell of burnt toast drifting through the kitchen. The house is quite a wreck, peeling paint on the walls, a dingy brown carpet, and a kitchen that seems to have seen countless culinary disasters, but for us, it's perfect. Every room feels alive with our stories, and each corner holds a memory. Every day feels like a new adventure. We have routines, but none of them feel repetitive. Mornings start with a chorus of alarms, grumbling complaints, and a frantic rush for coffee. Our coffee maker, I swear, is older than I am. It hisses and spits every morning, like it's exacting revenge for all the terrible brews it's had to endure. We've been living together for quite a while now, and these are the only friends I have in the neighborhood. The area is pretty quiet, and we don't talk to many people. The houses are spread out, and there's an old cottage near ours that's been abandoned for years. Sometimes I wonder if anyone will ever move in. My window faces the cottage's patio, and I can see a small part of its interior from there. Maybe I want someone to live there. It would make things feel less lonely, especially when my friends are busy with their own lives. During our weekly pizza nights, as I wrap up my share, I often find myself reflecting on how I ended up here with them. I remember those days in high school, weighed down by expectations, wondering what adulthood had in store. And now, here I am, navigating this unpredictable world filled with ups, downs, victories, and failures, all with my friends by my side. I won't idealize it. It's not always perfect. We argue over trivial things like whose turn it is to take out the trash or how to split the grocery bill. But those little conflicts only make the good times better. We've learned to communicate, compromise, and handle our differences. Living together has taught me more about patience and understanding than any lesson from a book. One evening, as I was lost in thought, something unexpected happened. The lights in the abandoned cottage's patio flickered on. No one lived there, but now there were signs of life. From my window, I could make out a shadow, probably of a woman, as I noticed her shoulder-length hair cascading down her back. As she moved, her silhouette became clearer, her curves, her form. Everything was visible. She didn't seem to notice me watching. My heart raced as I imagined her stepping out of the shower, her hair dripping water. I couldn't tear myself away from the window. Who was she? Would I ever meet her? My thoughts spiraled, leaving my mind restless and out of control. I tried to clear my head as I lay down for the night, but the usual calm brought by Jake's saxophone drifting down the hall didn't soothe me this time. Our house is always filled with familiar sounds: Alex gaming, Sam and Tara whispering sweet things, sudden bursts of laughter. This is my life, chaotic, messy, yet perfect in all its flaws. I think about my friends often, feeling grateful for this time together. I know that one day things will change, we'll grow up, and probably move on to different places, but for now, I'm living in this moment, surrounded by friends who have become my family. Sometimes I catch myself looking out the window at the stars, wondering what the future holds, but I'm also grounded by the knowledge that happiness comes from small moments shared with the people you care about. With that thought, I settle into sleep, knowing that tomorrow holds more laughter and adventures. Stepping outside into the cool night air, the house was eerily quiet. A stark reminder that most of my friends were out. The silence felt strange, a contrast to the usual noise of laughter and companionship. I considered calling a few of them but decided against it. Instead, I grabbed my jacket and set off for a walk. As I wandered through the neighborhood, my mind wandered too, filled with boredom and what-ifs. That's when I saw them, two familiar figures standing near a cafe. It took me a moment, but then recognition hit. They were friends of my mother's, her aunts, to be exact. "Is that you?" I called out, my curiosity piqued. Their expressions shifted from surprise to recognition, and they greeted me with warm smiles that brightened the dim street. I'd seen them at family gatherings before, but today felt different. There was a sparkle in their eyes that made them seem carefree and adventurous, so unlike the serious demeanor they usually had in formal settings. "It's so nice to see you," said the one on the left, her dark hair elegantly framing her face despite a few grey strands showing. "What are you doing out here?" I asked, feeling intrigued. "We're just on a little trip," the other, now 64, replied with a hearty laugh, "exploring the area while we can. This city has so much to offer." I found myself captivated not just by their beauty, which was striking, but by their energy. They wore their years proudly, exuding confidence and poise. The way they stood, the way they laughed, it drew me in. It felt almost surreal to be here with them, realizing they had lived full lives while I, still navigating my own, stood in their presence. "Where are you staying?" I asked, curious. "Right next to you, in that cottage," Lisa said. My heart skipped a beat. "Wait, are they staying there? Does that mean the woman I saw was one of them?" "Do you want to join us?" the younger-looking aunt asked, her eyes twinkling with mischief. We were just about to grab a drink before heading to the gallery down the street. I hesitated, my mind swirling with thoughts of the previous night. How could I shake this feeling from my heart? It wasn't easy. Should I join them? I wanted to, and I thought about my friends, how they usually didn't venture into such spontaneous and exciting moments. But this felt different, inviting, like an opportunity to break free from my own little bubble an unexpected adventure. They were full of life, and I craved to share that moment with them. "Sure, I'd love to," I said, surprising even myself with the excitement in my voice. As we made our way to the cafe, the conversation flowed effortlessly. They shared stories of their travels, their mischief over the years, and the funny situations they had found themselves in. It was refreshing. There were no pretenses, just real laughter and connection. We chose a table outside the cafe, with warm lights glowing around us like stars. They both ordered cocktails while I stuck with soda, which earned me playful teasing as they urged me to loosen up a bit. Their light-hearted banter brought a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time, a contrast to the sense of being stifled that I'd often experienced with my own friends. As we nibbled on appetizers and sipped our drinks, I was struck by how easily they drew me into conversation, coaxing stories out of me about my life. Before long, we were laughing together over shared experiences. Their youthful energy made me reflect on what it means to truly embrace life's imperfections and unpredictability. "Life's too short to hold back," the older one said, a spark of passion in her eyes. I nodded in agreement, realizing that truth in a way I hadn't before. Was I letting chances pass by because of my fears or hesitations? "Have you ever thought about what makes you feel truly alive?" the younger aunt asked with genuine curiosity. I paused, searching for the right words. I had dreams, ambitions even, but often felt weighed down by the pressures and expectations of those around me. But here I was, sitting across from two incredible women who chose adventure over routine, boldness over fear. As the evening went on, I felt a deeper connection forming not just with them, but with the idea of living fully. Their laughter rang in my ears, warm and freeing, and I realized I was witnessing something beautiful, the power of friendship and the magic of unexpected connections. By the time we finished our drinks and made our way to the gallery, I sensed a change within myself. I felt lighter, more connected to the world around me, as if I was shedding layers of hesitation. These two women, despite their age, were inspirations, graceful, full of laughter, and living proof of what it means to truly live. As we left the cafe, my heart echoed with the understanding that life isn't just about the paths we choose, it's also about the connections we make along the way. Meeting them that night was a lesson I would carry with me long after they were gone. Life is an adventure waiting to unfold. All I had to do was embrace it. I pushed those thoughts away, reminding myself I wasn't supposed to think of them like that. What if they ever found out? How embarrassing would that be? After all, they were mature women, my aunts, and here I was, feeling pathetic. Still, it was hard to resist. Every now and then, I'd see her at the market. At first, it was just a fleeting moment, a brief glimpse of her auburn hair catching the sunlight as she walked past a stall piled high with fruits. I remember the first time I noticed her, she was haggling over a bundle of fresh tomatoes, her laughter ringing out like wind chimes in the warm air. Back then, it was just an ordinary moment, nothing remarkable, but that changed the next time our paths crossed. A week later, she was in another corner of the market, examining jars of local honey. It was the way she leaned in, her eyes narrowing with concentration, that made me stop and watch. I couldn't help but notice how she carefully read each label, her fingers lightly grazing the glass jars. It felt like the world around us faded, and for a moment it was just her and me. Our eyes met briefly, and there was an undeniable spark. Instead of looking away, we held each other's gaze a beat longer than necessary before she smiled playfully and returned to her honey, pretending to be engrossed in her choice. I walked away, my heart pounding, wondering what I had just experienced. As the weeks passed, these encounters became something I secretly looked forward to. I found myself timing my trips to the market, hoping to catch a glimpse of her. I started to notice the little things, how she always wore that bright blue scarf, how she smiled at the vendors, and how her laughter seemed to linger in the air, keeping me company even when she wasn't around. One time, while I was picking up fresh herbs, I saw her at the bread stall, chatting with the baker. Her voice had a warmth that enveloped me like a soft blanket. The baker looked over at me, and I froze, unsure of what would happen next. She simply winked at me, a quick, subtle gesture that made my heart skip a beat. The baker chuckled, and she turned back to their conversation, but I was left in a daze. Then, there was that crisp autumn afternoon when she accidentally knocked over a basket of apples. They rolled everywhere, and without thinking, I rushed to help her gather them. Our hands brushed, and an electric jolt shot through me from that simple touch. She laughed it off, her cheeks turning a soft pink, and I couldn't hide my own smile. "Thanks for the help," she said with a playful grin, tossing an apple toward me once we had gathered the last of them. I threw it back, our laughter mingling in the crisp air. In that instant, it felt like the market was ours alone, untouched by time or the people around us. As the weeks passed, our exchanged glances grew more intense. I began to feel the change, the way she lingered a bit longer when she noticed me nearby, the way she'd tuck a loose strand of hair behind her ear, as though signaling something more personal. I started noticing every little detail about her, the wrinkles that formed at the corners of her eyes when she genuinely laughed, the playful defiance in her gaze when challenged. One day, while she was looking through some wildflowers, I gathered my courage and stepped closer. "What kind are you looking at?" I asked, feeling both nervous and excited. "Daisies," she said, turning to face me with a look of surprise that quickly shifted into delight. "They remind me of summer." "And you remind me of spring," I blurted out, and immediately felt the warmth rise to my cheeks. She laughed, a sound that sent butterflies into my stomach, and for a moment, the noise of the market softened into a distant hum. There was a pause, as if we were both on the verge of something new and unfamiliar. As our meetings became more frequent, I felt something deeper growing inside me. She occupied my thoughts even when I wasn't at the market. One day, I saw her with a friend, laughing so hard that she doubled over. I felt a pang of jealousy, gripping my basket of vegetables tighter as a mix of joy and longing swirled within me. Our encounters were no longer just routine, they became the highlight of my days. I often found myself wandering through the market just for a chance to see her, searching the crowd in hopes of exchanging a smile, a laugh, or perhaps a moment that could lead to something more. But with each passing day came the nagging uncertainty. Did she feel the same way? I caught myself daydreaming about quiet dinners, shared secrets, and laughter that lasted late into the night. Yet, I kept asking myself, how would I take that first step? So, I continued savoring our quiet dance, enjoying each fleeting moment we stole between our usual routines. There was something thrilling about those brief glances and casual touches, as if we were writing a silent story that only we understood. The market had become a small universe of possibilities, and I couldn't help but hope that one day, maybe soon, those moments would blossom into something real. When I got the call from Lisa and Amanda on that bitter winter night, I knew it was going to be a long evening. Their heater had broken down again, something that seemed to happen regularly. As I packed up my tools, I braced myself for another night of fixing things, hoping I could get everything working quickly so I could return to the warmth of my own living room. When I arrived at their house, Amanda and Lisa greeted me, wrapped in thick blankets, shivering slightly in the cold air. "Thanks for coming, Mark," Amanda said, her voice a mix of relief and desperation. Lisa, standing beside her, fluttered her eyelashes and gave me a warm smile that made me momentarily forget the cold. I got straight to work, inspecting the heater and identifying the problem. As I worked, I could hear their easy banter in the background, the kind that comes with years of close friendship. I didn't expect it, but I found myself feeling comfortable in their presence. There was a warmth in the air, but it wasn't just from the heater, it was something else. Lisa brought me a hot cup of cocoa, her fingers brushing mine as she handed it over. "You deserve a break," she said softly. I glanced up at her, noticing the sparkle in her eyes and the warmth that radiated from her not just in the drink, but in her whole presence. I sipped the cocoa, but it was that brief moment of connection that lingered, a touch that sent a small shock through me. As the heater began to work again, spreading warmth through the room, the atmosphere also shifted. Amanda and Lisa invited me to sit with them, and I hesitated, unsure if this crossed a line, but their hospitality felt genuine, and I found myself accepting. We talked about everything: family, joyful moments, and the everyday struggles of life. Amanda shared a funny story from work, and the laughter that followed made the evening feel more like a friendly gathering than a repair job. I realized I was enjoying their company more than I should have. As the night went on, I noticed the way Amanda and Lisa looked at me. It was a look of closeness, of familiarity, and a part of me felt exposed. Yet, amidst the stories and laughter, I saw something different in Lisa's eyes, a kind of invitation. After a while, Lisa leaned in, her body language open and welcoming. "What do you do to relax after a long day, Mark?" she asked, her tone almost conspiratorial. Her question took me by surprise. I wasn't used to being asked such a personal question in such a relaxed setting. I answered honestly, telling her how I like to unwind by myself, but her question lingered in my mind, stirring a sense of connection I hadn't anticipated. As we kept talking, Lisa's body moved closer to mine. I noticed the playful glances exchanged between her and Amanda, as if they had come to some silent understanding. It felt like an unspoken invitation, and I was both intrigued and cautious, unsure how far this would go. The usual boundaries of my job seemed to blur, replaced by a feeling of warmth and shared understanding. The heater hummed softly in the background, its sound mixing with our conversation and laughter. There was something undeniable about the connection forming between us. It felt both exhilarating and precarious, as if we were all longing for something deeper than just relief from the cold. I was acutely aware of the line we were tiptoeing around, but with them, it felt different. The camaraderie between us had transformed into something more intimate, a shared yearning for warmth, both physical and emotional. In that cozy setting, I found myself reflecting on the complexity of human connection and what it truly means to share a moment with someone. As the conversation carried on, I noticed that both Lisa and Amanda were leaning in closer. Their bodies were so close that they nearly touched mine, the cozy warmth of the room creating an atmosphere that made each shared laugh feel more meaningful. Lisa playfully nudged my arm, her laughter ringing out in the space. "You have such a great sense of humor, Mark. We could definitely use someone like you on our adventures," she said. Her closeness was intoxicating, and I felt a flutter in my chest, surprised by the growing attraction. Amanda joined in, her voice soft yet teasing. "We haven't had a real adventure in ages. Maybe you could inspire us to step outside our comfort zone," she added, leaning in even closer, her eyes gleaming with mischief. I could feel her warmth surrounding me, and it seemed like the distance between us had evaporated completely. Their playful conversation continued, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something deeper beneath the surface. Every time they laughed, I noticed the glances they exchanged, the smiles that lingered a moment too long, hinting at an unspoken connection. At one point, Lisa placed her hand on the back of the couch, creating a barrier that brought her even closer to me. "What do you think makes life feel truly alive?" she asked softly, her voice almost a whisper, inviting me into a more personal space. Her warm gaze held mine, pulling me in. Amanda echoed her thoughts, her arm brushing against mine as she spoke. "Sometimes it's just about being with the right people," she said, her words heavy with meaning, and I felt my heartbeat quicken. The connection between us was palpable, as if an invisible thread was drawing us closer. In that moment, I realized that we weren't just three people sharing stories anymore. The playful touches, the lingering glances, and the shared laughter had created a web of intimacy that was thrilling. I could sense their attraction, a mutual understanding that made every second feel charged with energy. As the night wore on, I allowed myself to lean into the moment, embracing the closeness that surrounded us. The usual boundaries of age and expectation disappeared, leaving behind a sense of possibility, a new adventure waiting to unfold. Amanda's fingers grazed my knee, sending ripples of sensation through me. I looked at her, caught between surprise and excitement, as the dim lighting cast shadows that seemed to intensify the tension in the room. "Are you okay?" she asked softly, her eyes searching mine for a response. I nodded, though my heart raced. Her touch lingered, sending shivers up my spine. What was happening between us felt electric, as if the world beyond the room had ceased to exist. Her hand moved slowly, expertly, and I felt every subtle movement. She knew exactly how to make me feel it all. Lisa leaned in, capturing my attention as she gently placed her hands on my face. The sweet scent of berries surrounded me, inviting and intoxicating. I found myself reaching for her, unable to resist the magnetic pull between us. Our breaths mingled, creating an electric tension that filled the air. Lisa's eyes sparkled with a mix of playfulness and sincerity, and I felt the world around us fade away. Every doubt and hesitation melted as her thumb gently brushed my cheek, sparking something deep inside me. Though I could faintly hear the bustle of the cafe behind us, it felt like we were the only two people in the world. "Are you ready for this?" she whispered, her voice low and inviting. My heart raced with anticipation and vulnerability, and I nodded, not trusting my voice to speak. The moment hung between us, filled with possibility, and I leaned in closer, surrendering to the moment. As I did, her warm breath danced across my skin, heightening my senses. The outside world completely faded, leaving only the connection between us. "Sometimes," she said softly, "you just have to take a leap." Her eyes locked onto mine, seeking reassurance. I felt a surge of courage and closed the gap between us, pressing my lips to hers. The kiss began gently, testing the waters, but it soon deepened, filled with passion and the promise of something more. Time lost its meaning, and I was fully immersed in her, each heartbeat echoing with the thrill of our connection. When we finally pulled apart, breathless, I could see the excitement in her eyes. "Wow," I whispered, still overwhelmed by the intensity of the moment. "Yeah," she replied, a playful smile tugging at her lips. "What now?" she asked, her voice full of curiosity. At that moment, anything seemed possible. Meanwhile, Amanda's body pressed against mine, her warmth against my back. I could feel them both close to me, enveloping me in their embrace. Their maturity and experience only made them more alluring, and as they held me, I could feel their affection, their touch exploring my body as mine did the same. My hands roamed over their skin, feeling the softness and tenderness that was so captivating. In no time, we were lying together, our bodies brushing against each other, skin to skin. Their lips left a trail of kisses over my body, their tongues teasing me, making the moment even more intense. Amanda straddled my lap, both of us eager for the connection we craved. Her movements were rhythmic, each one sending waves of pleasure through me as I responded to her every motion. Lisa's lips met mine again, and I grasped her with a firmness that matched her intensity. Her moans filled my mouth, adding to the magic of the moment. They weren't ready to stop, and neither was I. I explored them both, but it was as if they were guiding me to the treasures they held. It felt like a dance, my youth against their wisdom, and I wasn't ready to quit, not yet. Strangely, I felt at peace. I didn't know why, but being with these women, feeling their affection, gave me a sense of belonging, something I hadn't expected. They were perfection, masters of this art, and as we continued, I remembered that shadow from that night, the one that had ignited something in me. Everything felt right with them, as if I were living a life I had never experienced before. As the night stretched into the early hours of the morning, I realized I didn't want to leave. I was aware of what this all meant, but as I looked at them, two people who had brought light into the darkness, I couldn't deny the hold this experience had on me. I didn't know where it would lead, but I was captivated, eager to see where it might take me.